for joining this virtual meetup. I know this is a weekday and you have actually taken out time to be a part of this, so thank you so much. So today, this virtual meetup is a joint collaboration between Salesforce, Women in Technology Group Cyberjaya, and Developer User Group Trivandrum, India. So let's have a quick introduction of the group leaders. So as many of you might know, I lead WIT Women in Technology Group in Cyberjaya. So it's been like 1 year association with this Trailblazer community, and it's great. I mean, it's overwhelming to see how this community has evolved over the year. I mean, from a handful number of members to now it has more than 100 members. So that's overwhelming to see how everybody has come up and joined us. So that's about me. So over to you, Pujita.
Thank you, Shubhashini, and thank you everyone for carving out some time to join this session. And thank you, Anna and Nikhil, for joining this and contributing to the community. I am Pujita. I also co-lead the WIT with Shubhashini. So, yeah, looking forward to the session. Thank you.
Mira, over to you.
Sure, Subhashini. Thank you so much for introducing and adding us also to this session and meeting. We are very thankful to you, Subhashini, and thank you so much.
Yeah, we are also thankful to you.
Okay, and thank you so much, Anna and Nikhil, for joining with us for today's session. And I am a co-leader of Trivandrum User Group. So we have very recently started with this group, basically just less than 1 year. So we are very happy to join in today's session. Thank you.
Hi all, this is Parvati. Just like me, we recently started the Trivandrum Developer User Group, and we have conducted like 4 or 5 sessions this year, and to see a lot of participation in all our meetings. And about me, I am working as Associate Architect in UST Global. Enjoy all the sessions today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Parvati. So now we shall get started. So the first topic on which we are going to have a session is second generation gender bias. So in our day-to-day work life, most of us would have come across gender bias at workplace, sometimes explicitly, sometimes not so explicitly, sometimes intentional, sometimes non-intentional. So sometimes we speak about it, sometimes we take it as a social convention and we accept that this is the way of life. But perhaps we should all talk about it, and then we should know how to confront it and then overcome this. So today we have Anna with us. So Anna is a super mom at home and Salesforce product leader at her workplace. She is also Salesforce MVP, Lightning Champion, a Trailblazer, and in short, she is an inspiration to all of us. So she will share with us her work experience. So about this, how she overcame gender bias and emerged as one of the leaders. So over to you, Anna.
Awesome, thank you.
Would you share your screen?
Share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, how do I do that? Present now, here we go.
Do I need to make you presenter, or are you able to share?
Let me see, hang on. Present now. Okay, present your entire screen.
Okay.
Right. Okay, you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I mean, you've already heard an introduction. So anyway, so this is my title slide anyway, with my new official job title on it. So what I'm going to share with you today is is my story. It's fairly personal, but what I want to stress is it's my experience, and so your experiences may differ, and it'll be really awesome to have a conversation afterwards to see if there are any differences between your experiences and my experiences here in New Zealand. So where I came from, 12 years ago, I was a mother at home with my children. I spent 13 years out of the workforce. Over that time, I worked a little bit, but generally I was focusing on bringing up my children. So it was a really traditional arrangement. My husband was the main income earner, and I was the super mom at home with the children and sort of looking after them and taking them places and so on and so forth. And I was really happy to do that. I really got a lot of pleasure out of that. Once upon a time, they were cute kids, and so it was. I was happy to do that. And so, really, what started driving me back into the workforce was the older children get, the more expensive they get, and so we were starting to run out of money on one income. So I was lucky enough to be recruited into a position at a company. Originally, it was just as a short-term contractor. It was a Salesforce implementation that was going in, and I actually started off as a test resource as it happened. And so this is a photo of some of the team that I worked with, and I mean, as you can see from the photo, yes, I was the only woman on that team. They were an amazing team, though. I just loved working with this bunch of guys, and there were a few others that weren't in the photo as well. But it was a fantastic team. We were all really supportive of each other, and I really enjoyed it. That was my first introduction into Salesforce. If you remember, I said it was an implementation. So, as normally happens with implementations, you put something in, and then the team goes away, and so that was what happened. So. The team was disbanded, and so I was left as the sole resource. I was hired in a permanent role to be the CRM admin. Was my job title. I think it was CRM admin and business analyst. I think was the full title. But effectively, I was the only one who knew anything about Salesforce, and so that was my role. Now, if you remember, I had my children were still fairly young, and so I was keen to be not working full time, and so that was a concession that the company made. It was a full time role that they had, they were recruiting for, but they allowed me to work part time in it. So instead of doing 40 hours a week, I was doing 30 hours a week, and so being a mother. An older woman with children, and I needed that flexibility. I was really grateful to get that opportunity, and not only was it flexible in terms of time, but I could also, even sort of going back 10 years or more, I was still able to work remotely as well. And so one memorable occasion, I literally was working from a cafe on a ski field when the family was on holiday. I wasn't on holiday, but it meant that the rest of the family could go out and enjoy the snow, and I could be working in the cafe. So there was a lot of flexibility there, and I really valued that. And so this is kind of the typical female thing as well. My family were very important to me. I didn't want to work full time. I had other focuses, and so this is kind of what happens. You get you're really appreciative of that kind of concession, but eventually, and it took me a very long time to realize it had also stopped me progressing. I hadn't pushed myself. I had no confidence in myself, and I actually remember having made the decision. Because for the entire time that I was at that company for 10 years, I had the same job title. I'd had no sort of real promotion or recognition with what I was doing. And I had kind of in my head, it was kind of like, this is me, this is where I'm obviously destined to stay. I don't have any skills that I can transfer anywhere else. But I've got this flexibility, and this was what I wanted. And so, you know, it was definitely not explicit gender bias by any means, but I'd kind of put myself in that role, and the manager that I'd ended up with had certainly allowed that to carry on, because it suited him to keep me in that role as well, because it meant that he didn't have to recruit anybody else or anything like that. So it was quite a revelation, actually, to realise that my manager hadn't been behind me and supporting me. And it came to me on International Women's Day of all days. It was just a revelation, and I was angry. I was angry with myself for not realising that it had happened. And I was also angry at my manager as well, because he shouldn't have allowed it to have happened either. So now, the person that you can see on the other side, on my left, I guess it's on your right, looking at the screen, or maybe not, is Ankit. And so he was one of the team, and as I said, it was disbanded, and I was the only one left. Ankit approached me, and I ended up going to work for him after 10 years with the same company. So I'll go on and tell you about that in a second. So anyway, so what's significant here is there are two sides to this screen, as you can see. On the left-hand side is the jobs that I've had in the last 12 years in the Salesforce ecosystem. On the right-hand side is all the other stuff that I've been doing in the Salesforce ecosystem, but it's nothing to do directly with my job. Just going to take a quick drink. As you can see, they're all achievements, awards, and things like that, but not directly job related. So what happened to me was, as I said, because in that first job for 10 years, I knew the job very well, as you can imagine, after 10 years doing the same job. But because it wasn't really sparking any joy in me, and because I decided that nobody else wanted me, I was pouring all my energy externally. So I was looking outwards. I was, pushing myself on Trailhead. I was, doing certifications. I needed to mix with other people who knew something about Salesforce, because I was the only resource in my company. So that was when I started to build up the local user community, and I set up Salesforce Saturdays and Trailhead Tuesdays, and started traveling and going to events. So this was this is the change that came, was, being unhappy in the job. As I said, I was partly to blame as well, but I focused my energy where I was getting joy, which was externally. And so I was building up all of these things. And that was when Ankit, that I showed you in the photo in the previous slide, he could see everything I was doing in the community, and he came to me and he said, I want you to come and work for me. I really like what you're doing in the community. So he literally rescued me, because I had decided, as I said in my head, that I wasn't worthy of anything else. So that was the most awesome thing, to have somebody else recognise, and he'd known me anyway, so he could see that there was potential in me, even though I hadn't seen that myself. So I started to flourish in that role as a customer success manager at that new company, and I was still encouraged to go on and to continue with all my community activities, because I was getting a lot of pleasure out of that as well. So it was really adding to my growth, and while I was working as a customer success manager. So now fast forward to 2020, which is the year we all want to forget, but none of us ever will. Massive changes in the world, massive changes here in New Zealand. So my role was under threat, and it eventually ended up being disestablished. And so that was like the rug being pulled out from under me, when I had been starting to build up and feel confident, as I said, because I'd just gone so down in the previous roles. And now, and if you were here at the start, you would have heard me mention where I'm working now. And I've only been there for 4 weeks, but I'm working in the Ministry of Health in New Zealand. And so in New Zealand, we're using Salesforce as a solution for our contact tracing and border management and other things as well. So I'm literally, you know, what we're hearing in the press all day, you know, in terms of keeping New Zealand safe and COVID out, hopefully. So it's really, really exciting. It's an exciting role to be in. But one of the amazing things, and bear in mind, I'm only 4 weeks in, so when I was interviewed for this role, they actually came after me because they had seen what I was doing in the community. They recognised that perhaps I had something to contribute. And when I was interviewed by 2 women. And I'd never been interviewed by women before in tech. So that was the amazing thing. And when I walked into the office at the Ministry of Health on my first day, it was just hugely shocking to me because there were women everywhere. I've always been used to being, most of the time, the only women in the room, or definitely in a very significant minority. And all of a sudden, I was surrounded by women, older women, you know, people with grey hair like me, younger women, all cultures, men as well, of course. But I really feel like I found my home, because I know that was one of the things that I sort of had difficulty with before, was I couldn't be something because I couldn't see it. I'm not naturally sort of confronting by nature or anything like that. So, you know, my first role, when I realised that I wasn't very happy, I hadn't gone and confronted until the very end when I was leaving. But I'd sort of taken that energy and I'd focused it somewhere else where I did get pleasure, and that was externally into the community. So you've heard me talk about, you know, some of my struggles. You've also heard me mention what's worked for me. So I've just got a few things that may help you. So one of the things that I did earlier in the year was I put together this word cloud of inspiration. And so this is just, you know, there's lots of those kinds of apps that you can find on the web. And so I just sort of put in things that were important to me, and you can see them sort of popping up there. And so it's kind of a Salesforce Blue. It was kind of as close to Salesforce Blue as I could get it. And as you can see, I've put the things that are important to me on there, and not all of them are work related, because to me it's kind of a continuum. You know, you've got your family over one side, you've got work over the other, but there's all this other stuff in the middle, and that's where my passion is, and that's all the Salesforce stuff. So you can see that there's stuff that does relate to Salesforce, but not all of it does. But that's just part of who I am. So what, and this is something that I've really learned in the last couple of years for sure, is staying true to myself. Now that I've realised that I'm valuable, and one of the things that helped me realise that I was valuable was actually getting those certifications, because particularly as a minority, an older woman in tech, I was never very confident with what I was saying, particularly being like the sole Salesforce resource. I was never particularly confident when I was questioning things. I kind of thought something might have been a bit strange, or the sharing model might have been a bit off, but I wasn't necessarily saying it with any confidence. And it wasn't until I started sitting the application architect certifications and passing them first time that actually it made me realise that I was quite knowledgeable. I did know those things as a sole resource. I'd been dealing with that sort of thing all the time. But I do feel that it took those certifications for me to have that confidence. And I think that's a very female thing, is, you know, personally I felt that really did boost my confidence, having those certifications. I mean, other people say to me, "You're crazy for thinking that," and I'm like, well, I know that's what's worked for me. But for people to listen to me, and for me to be able to feel confident, having those certifications, having all those badges, and I guess you know, even like being recognised as a lightning champion and so on, those are things that actually help, you know, with my confidence for sure. But so what I would say is stay true to yourself. You know, Salesforce, I don't want it to be your entire life, your entire focus. You know, nurture your other passions as well, and be proud of those. They're part of who you are. And so the more I, you know, realized this, actually it did make me feel more confident as well. Was like, it made me feel much more rounded person, that I wasn't just the person that I was at work. And particularly now, even, you know, just a few weeks in, I really feel I can bring my whole self to work, and you know, share with people about my family and so on. There's nothing I have to hide. I can be, you know, whoever I want to be, and that's pretty awesome. And so I just want to share with you, so my social media profiles, just to show you what I mean. It's like the first thing you see on my Twitter profile, I mean, you can see I'm wearing a Trailblazer hoodie, but you can see my children. It's an old photo because they're a lot older than that now, but you can see them in my Twitter profile. I only have one. I don't have a Salesforce one and another one. It's just, this is me. You know, some of the stuff is stuff that I engage with locally. Some of it's to do with Salesforce. You know, some of it's to do with whatever. But to me, you know, I'm one person, and so I just have this one personality. And as you can see, the first word on my description there is mum. Likewise, on my LinkedIn profile, I was inspired by another New Zealand woman who's in tech, not in the Salesforce space, and she had mum as the first thing on her LinkedIn profile, and I thought, I'm going to do that. I was feeling strong enough and proud enough of who I was, and so I did that. And I did this several months ago. So in the new role that I have secured, this was my profile. I'm like, you know, I'm just putting it out there. I am a mother, and these other things as well. But, you know, to me, being a mother and putting my family first are the most important things. And so holding that strong has really helped me. So what I can say, and I've mentioned it earlier, of course, is, you know, if you're not happy in your role that you're in, it may not be possible to change things where you are. And so for me, what I did is I looked outside my own company. I went to the community. So this is a in-person event. This was one of the Salesforce Saturdays events that I set up. But, you know, I had that passion for Salesforce, and so I started looking outside to keep that going and to really keep me happy. You've got to live your life as well. You know, as I said, I mean, you know, my family is really important, and here are my young people now. So they are definitely young adults. Those are photos from last year. So my son is now first year at university. So this was on his last day at school that you can see there. So, you know, I even though I say, you know, family first, I don't need to have as much input into them as I used to when they were younger. So it has afforded me more time in recent years to get more involved in the community. But yeah, so to me, as I said, it's like there's other ways of getting your happiness and security, and it's not just through your job. So yeah, and you know, going with the family first theme, you know, this was one of the most treasured things was when my children sort of wrote me a congratulation note when I was awarded the MVP status last year, and I love those hashtags, you know, girl power and boss lady, and so you know, this is what I've got pinned to my Twitter profile, because, you know, it's work, but it's also my children as well, and so, as I said, that's really important to me. So this is a quote that I like to use, and it's around your vibe and connection, and hopefully with what I've been talking about, there might be something that you can relate to in there. So this is the way that I've built up my confidence. It's with the community. It wasn't originally within the role that I was in, and as I said, I didn't question that or challenge that, but I had built up my own confidence by within the community by looking outwards, and you know, it's, you know, happiness breeds happiness, and so definitely I think that has really helped me, and so hopefully you can find something in that. And so the other thing I just want to share with you is every time that I do any one of these talks, I always build out a trail mix as a bit of fun. So please feel very welcome to go in, because of course Trailhead covers everything. So there's probably a lot of stuff in there that I should have taken note of a long time ago, and taken heed, and perhaps had some difficult conversations which I didn't have with earlier managers and so on and so forth. But I'll go back to the fact that I was grateful to have a job. I valued the flexibility, and so I sacrificed being treated as an equal, and by working only part-time, and also not pushing myself forward, not seeking any promotion or anything like that. It's taken me a long time to get there. Well, I don't know if you ever do get there, but for me, so some of the things, as I said, it's been looking outside to the community, it's being certified and feeling confident about those certifications, because that to me means that I do know what I'm talking about, so I can prove myself. And I do think that that's definitely a female thing, that to get that equal footing, you actually probably need to be, have more certifications, just to sort of to talk that talk. And yeah, so that's me really. Really keen to understand if that sort of struck a chord with anybody. I can see there's some chat. I couldn't see the chat while I was speaking, so I'm just going to see the chat now. So thank you, Smitha. And so it's like, everybody finds their own balance, but to me, because I wasn't happy in my job, but it was only one thing, it was only one of the things that I was doing. So I could sort of compromise on that, because I could build up the local community and get a lot of happiness around that. And even though I was the one mentoring everybody else, my own job was kind of not that flash. So I was encouraging a lot of other people into really good roles, but lacking that confidence myself. So, and I don't know, it looks like most of the attendees are from India and Malaysia, so I'm not sure if you have any cultural differences there. From what I've experienced, there are a lot more women in tech that I can see. It's still fairly low in New Zealand, even though we're kind of like an equal opportunity country. But I really look to places like India and see, still a minority, of course, but from visibly what I can see is that women are well respected. But I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say. So does anyone want to come off mute and sort of say anything and discuss, or not? If you're interested, the things I spoke about today, at Dreamforce last year, I actually did a spoke in the Trailblazer Theatre, and there's a couple of other recordings. So if you find my LinkedIn profile and you're interested, they go into different detail about different aspects there. But I tried to sort of to combine it together to look at that gender bias thing, in today's talk.
Thank you, Anna, for your inspiring story, your journey, all these years. I hope everybody would have a lot of things to take away from your journey. So thank you very much. And shall we move to the next topic then? Anybody has any questions for Anna?